Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to FX Maniac again. This is Syed Mahmoud Amiri after a very long time with another tutorial. I've not been able to make tutorials for you people. I've been quite busy with some personal problems and some things that I needed to do. So actually I am back. That's what's important, and I try to be more consistent after this, which I will. So after nearly about 4 months, which was my last tutorial using Tyflow, I'm back with another one, which I'll be doing this effect. Alright, so as you can see, we've created this really cool sort of dispersion particle effect. I don't know what it is, but it looks cool. So we used like Tyflow and Phoenix FD inside 3D Studio Max to create this. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that exactly in this tutorial. So, and then we'll set up the lighting and stuff. So let's get into 3D Studio Max and get started. So here I have a blank scene in 3D Studio Max, and then you're going to go to the shapes and add text. So it's going to be any letter. So in this case I'm going to write N because that's the letter I used. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bevel modifier or whatever, extrude, shell, or whatever modifier, just to give it some thickness, you know. So maybe like 7, and then give it like 1 and -1, maybe 0.5 and -0.5. So yeah, that's it. And I'm just going to scale it up. So maybe I'll use a different font. Yeah, this one is a bit cooler. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to fill this with particles, and then I'm going to be using Phoenix FD to drive a simulation, sort of a smoky fluid motion, and then we'll drive the Tyflow particles using the Phoenix FD velocity or motion basically. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go back into 3D Studio Max, and I'm going to go into create panel and create a Tyflow. And if you don't have it, it's a free plugin currently in beta version by Tyson and Bill. Amazing plugin. I've done previous tutorials on it, and then you can go and download it. And what I'm going to do is going to the modify panel, open the editor, and then just shrink it down so we can see both of them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to birth some particles. So put in the birth, and I'm going to be started and end at 0. I just want a very one static body of particles. So, and then I'm going to set it to like what, 20,000 for now, but we're going to crank it up way high, maybe to a couple of millions, to get you know, these really fluid particles. Alright, so I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to add a position object operator, position object, and pick the object, and then you can hide the object. So that is our particles for now, and then I'm going to just change the color to maybe like white or something. Yeah. So now we have some particles. And then what I'm going to do is just leave it here and then go and create the Phoenix FD grid to be able to drive the motion. And before creating that, we need an object to basically move along the outlines of this object. In this case I've used a sphere, so a sphere is just moving around, and that will be used as a source for Phoenix FD to drive the smoke simulation. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go back into 3ds Max. From the top view, I'm going to add a sphere, so just big enough. Alright, and then just hit N or turn on auto key, and maybe to like what, 50 frames we go here, and then to like 100 frames we're going to go down like at a 45-degree angle, and then we don't have enough frames. So what I'm going to do is hold Control and Alt right click and drag, and that will basically increase our time frame. So then I'm going to go to 150 frame and then just move it up till the end. Alright, and then we're just going to create a few more frames just for the simulation to settle down. We just don't want it to just finish there, so we want the simulation to linger a bit longer. So that is our motion. You can make it, you know, slower if you want to, but I think that's okay, and that's what I did. So make sure real time is off, because Tyflow needs to calculate every frame properly, otherwise it would just force it to go real time. So I'm just going to turn it off, and then let's go ahead and create a Phoenix FD source. So I'm going to go here and just create a grid. So going to Phoenix FD, Fire and Smoke Sim, and just drag it down here and this much. And it doesn't have to be a very high-end simulation, because we just need the movement of the smoke simulation to drive the particles. So it doesn't have to be very high quality fancy simulation. And if you don't know about Phoenix FD or Tyflow, the basics, you guys can tell me in the comments of this tutorial, and I will do a tutorial on the basics of Phoenix FD. I'm sure there are plenty of tutorials out there, but still, if you wanted to, I can make tutorials on those. So just let me know in the comments. So let's get back to the tutorial, and then I'm gonna go create a fire source. So I'll go to helpers, Phoenix FD, and I'm going to create a PHX source, and then just going to add this object, and let's just see. I'm going to turn off temperature because we don't need any fire or something, just need the smoke. And let's just sim this and see how this looks. So this is going to look like this, and I'm going to go into the grid, select it, and go into preview and turn on enable in viewport. So that will be our smoke in motion, and then it's going to go down like that at an angle. And as you can see here, it doesn't really look like much is happening here. That's because the object is moving a little fast, and we don't have enough steps per frame to be able to calculate the movement of the smoke. So, and the other thing which is really important, I'm just going to stop the simulation, is that if you go into output, this is the most important thing. If you don't turn this on, this is not going to work. So you just need to turn on velocity, because we need the velocity of the grid in order to use it later inside of Tyflow. So then I'm going to go into dynamics and just where is it, steps per frame. Maybe I'll do 3, and you can do more, and you can crank up the simulation a bit if you want to, but I think for now this is just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simulate 200 frames, and I'll be back when this is done. Alright, so the simulation is done, and this is how it looks. It doesn't look really good, but the good thing is we don't need the look of the smoke for this. We just need the movement and that sort of fluid motion to be able to use it to displace the particles. So that's about it, and now we can go ahead and just go into the preview, turn off GPU preview, and turn off like the particles and stuff, so we can just hide it, we don't need to see it. And then I'm going to go back into Tyflow, so select Tyflow and open the editor, and I'm just going to add a fluid force, and just double click on it and it'll add, and then just pick the fluid node, in this case our Phoenix FD grid, and now as you can see, our particles are going and following that exact same motion of that Phoenix FD grid, which in this case is a bit wild actually really wild. And the thing we could have done is we could have made the emitter a bit smaller, but still we can control it. So we can go and influence maybe like 50%. We don't want it to be that intense, so just like, you know, 50%, it will just influence. And for this to look good, we need to increase the number of particles to like a lot. So what I'm gonna do is just make it like what, 20, and the direction 2. So just make sure when you update the parameters, just go into like the first frame, and for the parameter to make it like 20. And then let's see here. Now it's not going that wild, hopefully. But still, if it is going very wild, what you can do is you can make your simulation, your emitter object, or the object that is used as an emitter for the Phoenix FD, make it smaller and re-simulate it, and hopefully that'll be a little bit less intense, and you can just do that. So I think now it's just going a bit wild. So what I'm going to do is just like, I made that small, so now I'm just going to re-simulate this and see how it looks. So just for re-simulating, you need to turn off Tyflow, because I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want Tyflow to update in real time. And then just go back to the grid and just go back here and turn on GPU preview. So, and then we need to re-simulate it. So just re-simulate, and I will be back when this is done. Alright, so our 200 frame is now finished, and this simulation is, I think, a bit less wild. So what I'm going to do is just turn off enabling viewport again, and just go into Tyflow and turn it on again. So now hopefully it's a little bit less intense, and I think it is a bit less intense, but I mean still is not. So you can do one more thing. You can make your emitter, you know, it's just going too fast, like 50 frames. You can make it like, you know, just Control Alt and increase the time to maybe 300 frames, and select all the keyframes, right click and go into configure, show selection range, and just increase the general timing of your simulation, and that'll make it slow and hopefully not go as fast. But I'm going to continue with this one, and let's just say that it is okay. And even though we can replace it, let's see if it works. Yeah, we can replace it now. Yeah, it does work, but I think 20 is a bit like less, so make it like what, not 550, just 50. 50 is fine. Alright, so I think now it is a bit better, but the thing you can do is you can just you know, slow down the object, because now we've slowed it down. That's why it's not following the thing. I can just hide it, so now it looks just like this. Alright, so yeah, kind of like that, but we can add some variation to this, maybe 20. But in this example, I've used like a very small sphere, and yeah, I think that's what's giving me this sort of motion. And then I'll just show you guys now how to increase the number of particles and how to render this. So let's just say that this is okay for now, just like that, and let's just play it. I think it's fine. So yeah, and let's just replace the velocity direction too. So let's see here. I think blend is fine for this. Alright, so I think that's it. And now we can increase the number of particles. So before increasing that, I'm just going to add a shape operator, and then I'm just going to make it a geosphere, low res, and display geometry. So now we have like these particles, but I need to make it very small. So I'm going to the shape, or maybe yeah, I can just go here and scale. Don't need variation. Set it to 0. Make it like what, 30. These are the number of particles that we need. Maybe even smaller we go, but I need to increase it to maybe like what, not 20,000, 200,000 particles. So now it's pretty dense, but we need to just, you know, make them even smaller. And again, increase the number of particles. Maybe I'll just use like 400,000 particles. In my original example, I believe I used like what, 1 million or even more particles. Like the more you have it, the more nicer it's going to look, and of course it's going to take a lot more time to simulate. So this is how it looks right now, and I think if you were supposed to like re-simulate it one more time, it'll be fine, but I'm just going to go with this. This too is looking pretty cool, but you know, yeah, I like this one. So now I'll just go ahead and, you know, just show you guys how to render this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the first frame and just set up a frame to render. So I'm just going to go into render setup and set it to maybe 1280 by 720. Shift F to fit the frame, or just right click here and just go show save frame, and make sure that the particles doesn't go off camera. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more, just like that. Yep, and this is our effect. So just let it calculate, and I think it's looking pretty cool, man. It looks really cool. So now I'm just going to show you guys how to render this. So Control C, create a camera off of this, and then hit P again to just go and see it from a different angle. So in this example, as you can see, we got this little background, which is pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I did create a plane. So just plane, and I just moved it really far away because I don't want the background to be seen, you know, too much, and then I don't want the particles to cast a shadow onto the backdrop. I just want it to seem like a general sort of faded background. So I'm just going to move it back, go back to the camera view, hit M for the materials to show, and I'll be using Vray, so I'm just going to go into render setup and go into Vray 5 and cancel this, and I'm just going to add a legacy standard material for the background, maybe even darker, just dark blue, very less saturated, and hit OK. And then in order to get this really cool lighting, especially if you look here, we got a lot of nice shadows and details. So I've added 3 lights, one from each side and then from the top. So what I'm going to do is go back here into the perspective view, and I'll just add a V-Ray light, just like that, and just rotate it. Hit A to turn on angle snap, and just rotate it like 90 degrees from this angle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Control D this one and make sure it's an instance, and just mirror it from the X. And what I'm going to do is just copy one more instance, and what instance does basically is that they are copied, but necessarily what you change in one light, it will change, the change will basically take place in all the 3 lights. So that's what we want. And then I'm going to go here, just turn on, before doing that, the one important thing that we forgot to do is inside Tyflow, make sure to add a mesh operator in order to render it using Vray or any renderer. So just go ahead and turn on Vray IPR, and we get this message about substance compatibility, which I need to cancel this. Alright, so it's saying that the Phoenix FD smoke can also it cannot be shown in this, so we don't need to see that. And it's getting a bit slow, but let's just wait for a few seconds here. What I can do is just stop the IPR. Oh my goodness. Save this. And this is what I got after doing all that work, but luckily it got saved. So what I'm going to do is just open up 3ds Max again. Alright, so I've managed to reopen the file, and I just needed to resimulate the Phoenix FD simulation because it was lost because I didn't save the file. The cache files were not saved. Then I resimulated for 300 frames, and now this is what we're getting, which is looking pretty cool. You know, the same thing, just a little bit slower. And now what I'm going to do is we've set up our lights, right? So we've set up 3 lights here, and they're instant. So if you change the setting for 1, it will change for the 3 of them. And I'm just going to just rotate it slightly like that. Alright, so I'm just going to render this out and see how this is looking. So I'm just click on the render button and wait for this to render. Alright, so that is our render, our first render finished, and I think it looks fine. It just looks like orange powder or something. And the other thing is the lights are too bright. The third thing is the lights are visible, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the Vray light, one of them, just make it like what, 12, and go into the options and make it invisible. And the other thing that we needed was, like, we need to give this like a white material. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit M to bring up the material editor and just select Tyflow, and we'll add a standard grayish material to it. So now let's just render another frame and see how this looks. Alright, so here's our result, and it's looking pretty good, just like the example in our final render. But the thing is, I've used a lot more particles here, so you can go ahead and crank up the number of particles to maybe like 1 million or something, and then we can do some basic like things here, some color correction and stuff. And then, you know, you can bring in After Effects and do some post effects in it, you know, change the light direction a bit, and, you know, do different letters and stuff, and just render it out as a 3D sequence and just enjoy, you know, the result. It can be an object, it can be whatever. So this is the effect that we did today, and I think it's looking pretty cool. So if you guys if you've missed anything from the tutorial, make sure to mention them in the comment section below. And again, ask you guys if you want some basic tutorials on Phoenix FD or maybe Tyflow or whatever subject it may be, just tell me in the comments and I'll try my best to do the tutorials. Since I've been gone for like 4 months, I will be available and I will make tutorials consistently after this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and as always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure to subscribe because it would mean a lot to me. And more importantly, like the videos, because you know how the YouTube algorithm works is the more you like the videos, the more it's going to show up in the recommendations to other people, and the more it can reach out to other people, and that's what I want. That's what's going to help me, and I can help you guys. So thank you again for watching this tutorial, and till next time, enjoy working.